Hi, this is Dr. Bajwa. I'm Chief of Infectious Disease here at Niagara Falls Memorial. I'm here with our Director of Pharmacy, Michelle Lewis.
Yes.
And we're going to talk about a very important topic today, and that is about the COVID-19 vaccine. So the format, we are not prepared for this, it's very impromptu, so we're going to do question answers. Most of these questions have been posed by our employees. So I'm going to actually give Michelle a chance to ask me questions or whatever. You stop me if I'm saying something wrong, okay, because this is a new vaccine, okay, so we're going to do a best job we can do. Okay.
So as Dr. Bajwa mentioned, this is definitely a team effort, so we are going to try and answer as much as we can from each of our perspectives. So Dr. Bajwa, why don't we start with, can you explain what this vaccine is, how it works, and how it came to market so fast?
Yeah, Michelle, this is, I think, one of the best questions, and everybody is talking about it, is like why this vaccine came in within less than a year. So I think this is a triumph of science, and this vaccine is basically, we are going to talk about Pfizer because that's a vaccine which has received emergency use authorization by Federal Drug Administration. So this is a huge thing. So what this vaccine is basically, it's a part of a nucleic material of the virus called RNA, which codes for the proteins. So they took this piece of information of virus and they're going to inject in a vehicle which is a lipid vehicle, and they inject into our cells, mainly the muscles of upper arm deltoid basically. And once this RNA or the messenger, which is basically a code for the proteins, enters the cells, our cells will start producing a protein which most of us are familiar, like if we have seen the coronavirus pictures, everybody recalls that red spike. So this is the kind of protein which our cells are going to produce, and then our immune cells are going to produce antibodies against that spike protein, and that's how we're going to get protected from this infection. And second part of your question is how we can develop this so fast. So this goes, the credit goes to so many people, so many institutions. I think the modern science, we can sequence a genetic material within few days. It used to take years to just make up the genetic information or decode the genetic information. So the Chinese CDC, they provided the genetic code for this virus within January of this year, soon after this virus was discovered. So the information was freely available and it was freely shared across communities and across scientists. Then the government institutions, so there is if you have heard of Operation Warp Speed, so government spent so much money and they collaborated with the companies. They provided them with the protocols and what they are looking for, and all those fundings were. So one thing I want to emphasize, that all steps were taken. There was no hoops which were jumped. All safety protocols were instituted, and there was a rigorous evaluation of efficacy and safety data. Only then multiple regulatory agencies, not in the United States, but across other nations, United Kingdom, Canada, all those regulatory institutions, they reviewed this data and then only they allowed vaccine to be given. So this is definitely a safe vaccine, and I would recommend that we should take this vaccine.
So the way it was developed, is this considered a live vaccine?
Yeah, so this is not a live vaccine. Okay, so that is very important. So this is just an information from the virus nucleic acid. This is an RNA, and it disintegrates as soon as it codes for the protein. So it is not going to live in your cells. It is disintegrated almost instantaneously after the proteins are coded, and this RNA will not enter the human nucleus. So it's not going to be so it is not a live vaccine, but it will provide active immunity because it is going to induce protein formation, and our body is going to create antibodies against it.
Okay, thank you.
So, Michelle, I'm going to ask you, so we, like in news, we've been talking about the stringent requirements of storage, and I know you've been working hard, very hard, and we have seen in news that Niagara Falls have procured a freezer. So there is a question called cold chain, okay, which is very important for vaccine. The potency of vaccine is closely related to cold chain. So please tell our staff, what is this cold chain, and how do you ensure that the vaccine you receive from the first shipment will be stored and will be potent when we start vaccinating?
Sure. So as you've probably seen on the news, Pfizer is actually shipping this in specialized containers with dry ice. They have GPS tracking on this that also is able to keep that temperature and will report out if it has any temperature excursions, goes out of the range that it should be. And so basically, when we receive it, we immediately will be opening that package, ensuring that that temperature monitoring along the shipment route is still intact. And then as difficult as it may be, we actually, from the moment we open that package, we only have 90 seconds to either replace dry ice or put it in our freezer, which, as you can see, that'd be very complicated to continue to change dry ice. So we've decided to go the route of purchasing an ultra-low freezer that can maintain those temperatures, which are -70 to -80 degrees Celsius, extremely cold. We will be using protective gear, gloves, as we handle this. So this vaccine needs to be stored at those very low temperatures. And when we actually start vaccinating and we remove it from the freezer, those vials are good for 5 days in the refrigerator, unopened. But then we actually have to reconstitute it with a diluent, a specialized diluent that will then make it liquid, because this is a powder form as it comes. It will make it liquid, and each vial has 5 doses in it. Once we actually reconstitute that with the liquid, it is only good for 6 hours. So we have to be very stringent in our requirements and planning, which is why this is so important, that we have our employees and whoever we may be vaccinating at that time ready to go so that we don't waste even a single dose. It's very important. So as we set up our clinics for this, we will have refrigeration on site, so we will not be taking it out of the freezer until we know we are ready, and we will only reconstitute as we have people coming through, which is why we will be going through a scheduling process. Because yes, we have to maintain this cold chain, so from the shipping containers to the freezer to the refrigerator, we will be tracking every step of that way. And we also have a temperature monitoring system for our refrigerators and freezer, to the point that I'm monitoring to make sure that nothing goes wrong with that. If it does go out of range, I will get a text message, and immediately we'll be working to correct that. I don't envision any problems because we just purchased a very state-of-the-art freezer for this. So I feel very confident in being able to protect the viability of this vaccine so that we will be able to provide this service to our employees and patients eventually.
Excellent. So I think Michelle, we know Michelle, she is a superstar, and she has taken all the steps to make sure the vaccines are stored properly, and there is a process in place. So do you have selected a team of your pharmacy staff who, like, can I just walk into the pharmacy and have an access to freezer, or are you going to lock it, or what kind of safeguards you have, and are there going to be any logs of temperature also maintained?
Yes, so a lot of requirements there. The temperature logs, this is a continuous data feed online, so we will have those logs. We do have to report that to the state to ensure that we have kept the vaccine appropriately. It is in a freezer that is locked within a locked room inside a locked suite. So there are multiple locks involved, including the Board of Pharmacy has recommended we have a camera outside of that room. So we are installing that as we speak to ensure that we know what is going on with that vaccine. So No one will have access to it but my pharmacists, and we're the only ones with keys to that. And we will be ensuring that cold chain is kept up and the safety, security of this vaccine. So no one can just walk in and grab it or see it. It's not that easy, and we will go through the appropriate steps so that when we need to vaccinate, we will have just the supply with us that is necessary.
Excellent. So yeah, so don't just go to pharmacy and ask for this vaccine. Okay, so this is going to be quite regulated, it seems like. And just tell us, so how do, like if I want a vaccine, and first of all, like before I guess, so when do you think like Niagara Falls Memorial will be offering this vaccine to the employees?
We are anticipating doing this very soon. We expect, if you've seen the news, Pfizer is shipping as we speak. We are expected to potentially have it on site tomorrow, Monday. So this is groundbreaking. We're very excited. So we should have it on site within the next 24 to 48 hours, I would assume. And we would like to start vaccinating within a day of that time frame. New York State has set a goal for us to utilize all doses within 10 days. So we will be aggressively working with staff and scheduling because, as we mentioned, the record keeping and the storage and everything, we need to really be planning details. So it won't be just a walk-in. There will be a full registration process for this. And we will be working with the department managers, the different providers to ensure that we have a very logical, organized sequence so that we can provide the best care to our employees.
Excellent. And if I want a vaccine, so I should contact my department manager, or can I like call the scheduling?
We would like to go through department managers first, and they will work with the employee and scheduling to take care of that. This is a rolling process, so things may change in the next few days, but we will be communicating that with all staff. So there will be a lot with the department managers, so please, all staff need to work with their department managers on this so that, once again, we can maintain that organized process for this.
So do you think it is going to be offered to like all employees or all staff within a department on same day, or what do you suggest, or what is the good thing to do? Like,
okay, so basically we've received guidance from the federal government with the CDC and their committees that make recommendations, as well as the state level. They've kind of taken that a step further. So we do have a prioritization. The initial phase will be phase 1A, being healthcare workers, but within that, there will be subgroups. So right now what we're asking is that all staff reach out to their managers and express an interest in this vaccine. From there, the managers will work with myself and you as we decide priority regarding the first few days, who's going to get that first, being many of those frontline workers in our ED, our ICU, S3. This will be our nurses, our providers, respiratory therapy, environmental services, anyone who is potentially out there and in contact with the public. So that is our first step, but I am fairly confident with the supply that we are anticipating to get that we should be able to hit all of our healthcare workers in a very timely fashion. So voice that interest now, and hopefully within a week we can start to move into the different groups and try and vaccinate as many people as possible.
Yeah, so this is important, guys. So like this vaccine is like very essential, as we have talked about it, and this is not freely available, and like Niagara Falls Memorial is lucky to have a pharmacy team and administration and everybody working to get this vaccine. And please get this vaccine. And make sure that you talk to your department managers and be on the list, because Michelle has a duty towards state that this vaccine needs to be administered within 10 days of receiving this. So this is a huge thing. So there is no ifs and buts. So make up your mind and talk to your department manager and let the people know so that you can get vaccinated, and Michelle and her team has a plan.
Dr. Bajwa, why do you think this vaccine is so important, and what is this going to do for our employees and our patients down the road?
So, yeah, the COVID-19, we've been dealing with this since March of this year in New York State and rest of the world, like end of December 2019. So this disease started, and there have been many talks and many things done to stop this pandemic, and we have seen the results. Like we are almost the same level of infection when we started in March in New York State. Like our hospitals are full, and the worst part of this infection is we cannot predict who is going to react to this virus, and so there are people who are relatively healthy with stable chronic medical conditions, and they end up in ICU on ventilators, and once they go there, like it's a long stay. So people can really get sick with this disease, and that is one aspect. Second is look at the social aspect. So the way of life has changed tremendously. Like 2019 December, we were talking about holidays this time, and here we are in 2020, we are talking about this pandemic, which is smoldering, and it's not going to go away, okay? And I think the vaccine is going to change the course of this pandemic. This is going to be the best thing we have so far for or against this pandemic. I think this is the beginning of the end, what I see. So this vaccine is really important for everybody, especially the frontline workers and our susceptible patients, especially nursing home population, because that's the population which has the highest rate of mortality if we look at all the numbers. So this is very important. And the data which was shared by the Pfizer, like this trial, which is a phase 3 trial, so there have been, like, it's not like 100 people, like it's around 22,000 people who received this vaccine, and there were 22,000 people who received a placebo. And when we look at the consolidated data, so this vaccine was 95% effective in preventing this infection. 95% is a huge number when we talk about this.
How does that compare to, let's say, our annual flu shots?
Yeah, so the best case scenario, like it is less than 50% compared to 95. 95% is, I think, the best kind of protection. Like any vaccine which can go 95, it's like almost 100% in, like when we do the population studies. So this is very effective and safe vaccine from the data which we have already received, which has been reviewed by multiple regulatory authorities.
So we mentioned about overall safety and that it works really well, but what can our employees expect as far as maybe more immediate side effects from this vaccine?
So as you know, all vaccines, they have side effect, and this is a viral vaccine, and this is not hugely different from other viral vaccines. The most common side effect, which are basically transient, okay? Transient means like 2 or 3 days at the most, and they will resolve by itself. The most common being the pain and swelling at the site of injection. That's the most common. And if we talk about other side effects, they may include myalgias, fatigue, fever, which is not high-grade, low-grade fever. But the good thing about all these, I would say these are minor side effects compared to the kind of protection they will provide us. So, and these are all transient, and no serious side effects were reported in the actual trial. If we start looking at out of the trial population, like many of our colleagues probably will talk about serious side effects which were reported in England when they started mass vaccination. So those are like outside the trial population, that's the general population. And if I remember correctly, so those patients, they already have a history of serious allergies, and they used to carry the EpiPen. And that brings to another point which I want you to be reassured, and I want Michelle to tell what steps she will be taking or her team is going to take to observe these people or our staff members who get vaccine, and if something happens, how are we going to report it?
Okay, so we will be setting up space probably in the auditoriums, and that is where we will have everything set up for the next month or so that we can really keep an eye on this. When you come for your vaccination, after we administer it, you actually will be staying within our area with our healthcare providers for 15 minutes observation time. If you do have a history of these allergic reactions and things, it is recommended to potentially stay for about 30 minutes. But we will have that minimum 15-minute observation time of everyone that gets this vaccination so that we can just make sure there are no serious side effects. With that, we have a lot of the emergency resources at hand, so I don't envision any true issues there. And then if there are some side effects or bigger adverse effects, we do have a reporting system with the federal government that has been set up for all vaccinations. So this is nothing new. We have always been reporting any sort of adverse effect to the government so they can study that, because they continue to study these after they come to market to make sure the safety continues. So that's one piece that on our end we will be doing. But another thing is the government has been working with CDC and putting together an app called vSafe. And this app will be used for the general public to be able to track any issues, report anything, so self-reporting, and being able to assist all of us with knowing how well this vaccine's working and what kind of side effects we are seeing. So there are multiple tools in place. And kind of adding on to the side effect piece, some of the things that we've seen for those of you that may have gotten the Shingrix vaccine before, they're actually thinking that a lot of those adverse effects are more prevalent, more common than even this COVID vaccine side effects. So for those of you that had it, maybe it hurt a little bit. In theory, we're being told that the COVID one doesn't even have that many side effects as the Shingrix, which has been around for a few years now. And we're seeing very good data with that. So I thought that was pretty interesting. So we do know what's going on. And as you mentioned, these types of things have been studied for years. We just were able to put all the pieces together this year and come up with this quicker.
Yeah, no, that's very important. So yes, so feel safe because once you get a vaccine, you will be observed for a certain period of time. And if you have history of serious allergic reactions, so talk to your healthcare provider and they can guide you better. And if you have any further questions, Michelle has introduced email.
Yes.
Why don't you tell our viewers about
Sure.
that?
We set up an email, and I sent out a notification at the end of last week. But we have an email set up specifically for your questions about this. That will be manned by our pharmacists, and we will work with Dr. Bajwa for any other clinical questions that we may need information on. But this email address, you can send any time. We will be looking at it regularly and getting back to you. And the email address for that is COVID-19 vaccine rx@nfmmc.org. That's COVID-19 vaccine rx@nfmmc.org. And as I mentioned, we will be regularly checking that account because we want to get the best information out to our staff because we know there's a lot of misinformation and myths out there that it's kind of what brought us together today. And we want to continue that conversation so that we can give you the best information so you can make the best decisions.
So do you think it will be safe for our staff to send their HIPAA protected information or their medical comorbidities on this email, or they should refrain from doing that?
That I would really go more to your provider with that information. We just want to, we can provide that general information, but on a case-by-case basis, I really think working with your provider is the best option. So this way, you might forget to tell us a piece of that information, and we don't want to make any recommendations without that. So I would refrain from it and just kind of more the general type questions.
Okay.
So we don't need to get into too much detail.
So yeah, so there are many tools at your disposal. So the best tool would be to stop us because the pharmacy staff is always on the floors. I'm rounding. So, okay, you see Michelle you see any one of us, you stop us, we will answer your questions to best of our ability. And the people who don't catch us in person, they can easily send emails to the address Michelle just told you, and talk to your provider also if you have any other significant question. And last thing before we stop is basically who can get this vaccine. Like, is there age group? Is there a certain population who is excluded from getting this vaccine, especially when it is in a limited supply? So,
Right,
do you want to talk something about that, Michelle?
So, kind of already mentioned the phases and prioritization, but there are also, regarding how it was studied and the indications, this first vaccine, Pfizer, which is the one we are predicting to have within the next few days, was studied in 16 older, so we are not looking at pediatric patients with this. They're still looking and trying to make recommendations on pregnancy. These are things that you would really want to talk to a provider, and I'm sure Dr. Bajwa would be willing to have those discussions as well. But mainly because we just don't have that data. Because we wanted to get it to market so quickly, we studied in the general population. So there's a lot of the specific special populations, those that have the history of anaphylaxis or really bad allergic reactions are not precluded from it, but should just get more information, I believe.
So definitely, so when you register for your vaccine, if you have history of anaphylaxis to medicines, especially the injection medicines, okay, because this vaccine is also going to be like reconstituted, so we're going to use mixing agent. So if you have that kind of allergy, you need to alert us and discuss with your provider. Second thing is for our female employees, the staff members, if you think you are pregnant or you're planning to get pregnant, please have a discussion with your provider or with us before you get this vaccine. And because of the limited supply, so we are not going to be offering this vaccine right now to the staff members who've been diagnosed in past 90 days with COVID. Is that correct, Michelle?
Correct. So
it's
in the
just
future, we probably will be looking at that, but our initial plan would be to not give those right away.
It's just the matter of that availability. It's not that we don't like want to. It's just like so we're going to exclude in the first phase anybody who has been diagnosed with COVID-19. So there is no testing required because some staff members have stopped and asked whether they should get antibodies checked before getting this vaccine. So there's no recommendations on that. So anybody who fits the criteria which we discussed, they can just walk in and register for vaccine. Anything else you want to say at the conclusion?
I guess just going along with all the safety pieces there, once we get through the registration and it is time for you to actually get the vaccine, we will have a series of questions, and we'll be doing that history again before we physically give it. So we'll go over those side effects. We will go over the med history, making sure that you are the right candidate. So
Excellent.
We will be looking at that in more depth even after we get that ball rolling. So there are a lot of safety measures in place, and I think that we are providing a service to our employees, and they really should take advantage of it. I think it's something unique, coming back to the supply concerns. There are only 90 facilities in the state that are scheduled to get this first round, so we are very lucky. It is something that we really need to take advantage of.
No, I think Michelle is right on the point, so please take advantage of this. So will you take the vaccine, Michelle? Are you confident about the data?
Yes, I am very confident. I have read the studies, followed all of the different meetings from the CDC, and really been doing my homework. So based off of all that chemistry and everything from pharmacy school, I feel confident, and when it's my turn in the prioritization, I will definitely be getting the vaccine.
Excellent.
How about you?
Same here. I will get the vaccine. So once it is offered to me, I'm not going to refuse it. I will take the vaccine for sure. And if Michelle, like we know her, she makes a very good decisions all the time. So she makes a decision of taking this vaccine. So if she made this choice, she have some reasons behind that. Okay, so this is not just a joke. This is a serious thing, and it is safe, effective vaccine. I strongly recommend it based on available data. We should go for vaccine. And thank you so much, Michelle, for your time.
Thank you.